Hey everyone, welcome to An Eventful Life with Brad Cox and Shane Buzzer. I'm Brad.
And I'm Shane.
An Eventful Life is the podcast where we take you on a journey through eventful lives of inspirational event industry leaders from around the world.
That's right. We'll be sharing their stories' impact and insight into the complex world of events. So if you like these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your mates.
This is An Eventful Life.
Hello and welcome to An Eventful Life. This is Shane and I'm here with Brad. How are you, Brad?
I'm good, mate. Yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a beautiful afternoon.
Oh, yeah. Lovely.
Are you trekking yet? You went away for the weekend?
I have been away. I've actually been down in sunny Tasmania, dare I say it. It was absolutely sensational. I've been mountain biking down there, so I got a little bit of a few days off from the work life and the family life and the kids and all the rest of it. So a bunch of mates and look, I've still got 2 arms and 2 legs and not too many injuries. So that's the main thing when you go out and do those crazy activities. I'm getting a bit too old to do those fun things, but it is good and enjoyable. So we hired e-bikes. Can you remember? We're getting old.
That's lazy is what that is.
It was lazy, but it's we covered some good ground and had a bit of fun. So that's the main thing.
Excellent. And you mentioned back to family life. Is the Christmas tree up yet? You're the family man of this duo.
So the Christmas tree is up. The Christmas tree's up. The decorations are out. The countdown's on. The Christmas hats are out. And this weekend's job is to get the outside lights up. So
Jesus.
Yeah, look, it's
full Griswold. Is that what we're talking?
It's the biggest annual event on the calendar in our house. So I've got a little elf son who is right into Christmas, who takes after me and probably end up in this game because I reckon that's where it all started. So, but good times.
Excellent.
Good time of year. What about yourself?
I don't know. I'll find a tree somewhere. I might put it up.
Come on. We need to get some decorations in the studio, I think.
That I'm all for, definitely.
There you go.
At home, we'll see.
Yeah, all right. Fair enough. Well, let's get into it. Today's guest has honed her craft for nearly 30 years. As stage manager for Olympic opening and closing ceremonies, Sydney Harbour New Year's Eve celebrations, and production manager for a variety of theatre and touring dance and productions before taking up residency as the Sydney Opera House production manager in 2007. An illustrious career over 15 years at Sydney Opera House saw her become the director of performing theatre, arts and events, and eventually onto the role as general manager of event operations and planning. A current board member of Venue Management Association and recently becoming the Precinct Manager for Walsh Bay as part of Create New South Wales. It's a great privilege to welcome to the show Heather Clarke. Welcome, Heather.
Hey guys, how you doing? Nice to chat.
Very good, thank you. How's things in downtown Sydney at the moment? Where are you? You've got a great background behind you. I know the listeners can't see you, but I believe you might be somewhere interesting.
I am in a big commercial space at Walsh Bay Arts Precinct. We have this fantastic venue at the end of Pier 23 in Walsh Bay, and which is also the home to Australian Chamber Orchestra, Bell Shakespeare, and the Australian Theatre for Young People on Pier 23. And we've got this commercial space here that we hire out for different things, and it's a beautiful heritage venue here right in the heart of Sydney and on the harbour. And it's a beautiful day here in Sydney too. So not that I want to get a bit competitive between Sydney and Melbourne.
Oh, we like a bit of competition between the two.
Yeah, there'll be a bit of that throughout the discussion, no doubt. But no, thanks for coming along. And I we didn't ask you where you were when we were having a brief chat prior, but thanks for that contribution and let us know where you are. There's obviously lots going on where you are.
Yeah, we're really getting ready for Sydney Festival at the moment. Sydney Festival are going to make Walsh Bay turn it into the Thirsty Mile, a play on the heritage of the site. It used to be was called the Hungry Mile here back in the 1920s. So Sydney Festival are going to come and make the Arts Precinct their home, and they're using all the venues here, and a big art installation here in this big venue that I'm in now. So it's going to be really exciting times in January. I'm really looking forward to it.
Now, we've got a lot to get through today, but let's take it back to the early days. Am I right in saying that you're an Adelaide girl?
I am an Adelaide girl. Actually, I grew up in country South Australia in Mundalla. I went to Mundalla Primary School. There was about 80 of us in Mundalla Primary School. And then I went to Bordertown High School. There were 300 of us there. So a very different life to here in Sydney. I think my son's primary school, there was 1,200. So it's
big difference.
Life's a bit different. Yeah. So I grew up on a farm, grew up in country southeast South Australia, and did my year 12, and then moved to Adelaide and went to Flinders University for a couple of years doing an arts degree.
And were you always interested in sort of the arts background or the event background and production? How did you fall into that to start with?
Yeah, look, I wasn't, or I was always a bit of a show pony. Like, I liked being on stage, bit of a show off in the school productions and everything. But to be honest, I didn't really know a career in the arts existed until after when I moved to Adelaide, I started studying at Flinders University. I was actually doing an arts degree there, and I got involved in an amateur theatre company, La Mama. So I was about 19. And then I started going out with a guy there who was applying to get into the Centre for Performing Arts. And I thought, oh, what's all this about? And as I was getting involved in amateur theatre, and I got this job called a stage manager. I didn't even know what a stage manager did. And so in amateur theatre, you do everything. You paint the set, you're on stage, you're operating the lights. And so I started doing that and thought, oh, what this theatre thing? And then this guy that I started seeing started talking about that you could actually do this stuff as a job. And I thought, oh, that's strange. That's interesting. And so a year later, I applied for the Centre for Performing Arts and got involved in technical theatre. But before that, I took a year off uni, and that's when I got really involved in amateur theatre and just started volunteering around the place. And I went and volunteered at the what was the Rock and Roll of Stedford in Adelaide, and it was the most amazing couple of weeks. I just had so much fun working on this production. I just turned up. I'd organised to come as a volunteer, and I remember turning up on the Monday morning, and no one knew I was coming. And they said, "Oh, you can go over there and help Fiona on the OP wing and hang out over there." And so I did, and I had the most amazing time, and I really fell into it. And then from there, I went into the Festival Theatre and worked on their finals and had a great time. Again, it was all volunteer. And then this big production was coming through Adelaide a few weeks later, and a few of the stage management team all got sick, and they rang me up and said, "Heather, we need an assistant stage manager. Can you come and work in the Festival Theatre?" And I'm like, holy hell, are you serious? This is amazing. So I went in and worked on this big musical, Big River, and that was the start of it. I had the bug, and by this point, I was 20 years old. So yeah, I came into it late in life, one might say.
I'll let Brad touch on this a bit, but are you finding it's a common trend with some of our guests as far as getting into theatre?
Absolutely, yeah.
Early time in their career.
And I mean, again, I've spoken a little bit about my career and where I started from. I think those early days of community theatre, of amateur theatre, or of semi-professional theatre base. It's such a great grounding, and a lot of people just start off by volunteering, by just getting involved.
Yeah.
It's an interest area or a passion project. And then to your point, Heather, it's like all of a sudden you go, oh, wow, I can make a career out of this, or I can make some money out of this, or at least I can, maybe it starts as a side hustle before it even becomes a full-time thing. But, people realize that there's more to it, and there's so much goes on behind the scenes in developing a theatre production that there is so many people involved that rely on just particular skill sets. And, theatre in particular, I think everyone stays in their lane to some degree. In terms of you need costume departments, you need makeup departments, you need the production and stage management departments, sets departments, and so forth, and they're all specialists in their area. Whereas when we get into the more event stuff, now that we once we go down that path, you become a little bit more generalistic in some ways. But I'm interested, obviously you did the theatre stuff in particular, Heather, and then where did you the stage management craft? Did you fall in love with the process of stage management, or was it the music, or what drew you into that piece in particular to turn around and go, I'm gonna build my career out of this?
Yeah, well, I did go to the Centre for Performing Arts in Adelaide, and then I ended up at State Theatre Company South Australia as an assistant stage manager. And stage managing, I think, just has to be one of the best jobs that there is to do in theatre. It was as an assistant stage manager in a theatre company, you tend to be organising the props and the rehearsal room. You've got to have a memory of what we did yesterday, the continuity, keeping the prompt script up to date as to what the cast are doing at any point in time, keeping the director on on schedule, making sure the right actors are there to rehearse the right scene. There's just so much organising, and dealing with people actually is the really fun thing, because you've got to go and talk to the people organising the props and make sure you've got the right props for today's rehearsal, and all of the things that go in, and so that the rehearsal room can run smoothly and the actors have got what they need, and fitting their costume fittings in, and making sure they've got all the costume department, they've got what they need. And so you're dealing with every department, which is why it's so much fun. You're liaising with the designers so that they can be in the rehearsal room when they need to, and then working with the theatre and organising dressing rooms and the politics of it, which actor goes into which dressing room and who gets the best dressing room. And it's a really...
Which was you, of course, right? Each time? That was you that got the main room?
No.
Stage managers don't get any dressing room, mate. You get changed right next to your ops desk if you need to.
Yeah.
So
and it's very
absolutely.
much a people person job. It's what stage management is, and keeping everyone organised.
Yeah, 100%. And, very similar to that event management role, but it's that central point of communication in the theatre. Everything falls around the stage manager in terms of, from your point, the logistics to the organising but from upper management right through to all the different departments. It all filters in and out of that stage manager. It's such a critical department of a theatre production.
You'd lose any timid behaviours pretty quickly, wouldn't you? You'd have to get it together and crack the whip.
I don't know many stage managers who are very timid. It's not really something that comes with the territory, that's for sure.
No, I've never met one, I don't think. One that's lasted very long. Not that we need to name anybody, but that's a whole nother story. Hey, you moved on, I guess, you've gone from ASM and then into that sort of stage manager position, but really keen to sort of start to explore some of particularly your event work. And, you moved into through that theatre production piece, but then into sort of more live event stuff. Can you give us a bit of an insight of how you sort of went from theatre and into that space?
Yeah, it was after I had stage managed, I went and worked for Merrill Tankard Australian Dance Theatre for 3 years, and I was the production tour manager there. And we toured the world a lot. We did a lot of touring. Merrill's the most extraordinary choreographer, and we did amazing few shows that we toured the world for in 3 years. And then Merrill left Adelaide, and she got one of the roles in designing choreographing one of the opening ceremony segment for the Olympics. And I thought, when Australia or Sydney got the Olympics, I thought, I really want to be in Sydney for the Olympics. And so I planned to move to Sydney, and I worked on the millennial New Year's Eve celebrations on Sydney Harbour first up, and then moved on to the Olympics, stage managing Merrill's segment. And I'd worked with another designer, Nigel Jamieson, who also was doing a segment for the Olympics. So I looked after both Nigel and Merrill's segments for the opening ceremony of the Olympics. And that was just the most extraordinary thing to work on at such a grand scale. The rehearsal room in this instance was, Schofield's Air Base, with hundreds and thousands of children. And so that was sort of my real big taste of the big event life. And that was extraordinary fun.
And Heather, I want to pause on Olympics for a moment because you mentioned the millennial New Year's Eve that you did. For those of us old enough to remember that, which Brad and I definitely are old enough, that was a big deal. And
the world was going to come to an end.
I was going to say there was a mix of excitement with holy shit, is the world going to end? Because that was the word on the street, right? But I mean, how did you land that job? Because you don't just decide, okay, I'm in Adelaide, I'm going to move to Sydney, and I'm going to work on probably the biggest New Year's Eve that we have in Australia, on the biggest occasion that anyone alive really at the moment has seen, being the millennial.
Well, with most things in the arts... Millennium. With most things in the arts, it's who you know, of course. Yeah. And one of the guys that was leading the New Year's Eve celebrations was an Adelaide person who I had worked with in Adelaide. So, and I had contacted him, and I'd worked with him, and it's all about relationships and, having good relationships, and you're as good as your last job. And I had a had worked with him, and so he said, "Come to Sydney and work on this." And I new to Sydney, and there I was cruising around Sydney Harbour. I think we climbed the bridge a few times to go and check out the fireworks. It was all a bit easier back then too, I must say. It was a long time ago. It wasn't quite the security.
I was going to say, what was risk management like back in those days?
Yeah, well, I mean, it did exist, but it was slightly different. The way I, ended up climbing the bridge was certainly, it wouldn't happen nowadays.
Yeah, there we go.
So, yeah,
There's a story.
I knew. It was who I knew.
Fantastic. Yep. And I guess the Olympics is funny. I actually saw some highlights of the Sydney Olympics opening ceremony the other day, and the way we started with with that Man from Snowy River sequence in particular. But looking at the production values back then, and it was cutting edge in year 2000, and you sort of look at it now and go, wow, we've come a long way in only 20 years really, or just over 20 years, but it's amazing still the level of production that's delivered back then. What was the experience like for you going in, for someone with not a huge volume of event stage management, but certainly the theatre stuff, and in some ways it is a big theatre stage, but the experience of stepping into that environment, big major event, global audience, high expectation. Can you give us a bit of an insight what the process is like and behind the scenes and how it evolved for you?
Yeah, I mean, because I was working with directors I knew, and they trusted me and I trusted them. And then the relationships with everyone else, all the people that I met, the relationships flowed on very quickly. So very quickly there was a sense of trust between everyone that was working on the event. Everyone was out for this common goal, which was to deliver this most extraordinary opening event. So we were in it together. So I didn't ever really feel like the new girl on the block, because everyone was in the same boat. None of us had really delivered a big opening ceremony like this in Australia before. I mean, there were obviously some really experienced people working on the event, but it was such a team collaborative effort that it just seemed to flow really well, and I never really felt like the new kid on the block, to be honest. And the rehearsals were with a lot of school groups and school kids, so you easily fit into the environment that you're in, and certainly in that situation I did.
Now, did you cross paths with one of our previous guests on the show, which is Chong Lim?
Well, I didn't have much to do with the with him. No, I didn't. No,
there was. I thought you were going to give us some dirt.
Thousands of people.
I thought you might have thrown us a Chong story.
No, sorry.
Well, talking about stories, have you got any cool stories from that time, from the Sydney Olympics? Is there something that's etched in your memory that you'll never forget?
In the middle of the opening ceremony, I remember one of the guys came off one of the big machines in the Tin Symphony that Nigel did. Everyone in the audience had lights that they were shining from their little kits that they were given, and one of the guys that I'd been working with that came off out from the field of play, and he said, "Heather, just stop for a minute. I know we're all busy. Just stop and take a breath and look out there." And we just looked out there, and there was 120,000 people and all this, and it was so good to actually stop and take a snapshot in time, because of course we didn't have iPhones back then too. We weren't videoing.
I was going to ask about that.
Photos of everything. We just had to remember our camera, and so it really was I got this photographic memory of it, and it was so good. But actually, one of the other great things where my worlds collided in Tin Symphony, Nigel's bit, there was a whole thing about sheep shearing. The country was built on the back of the sheep. The cast had to make out they were shearing a sheep, and so they didn't know how to do it. And I grew up on a farm, and I was like, and a sheep farm. My dad was a shearer, and I said, hang on, you don't shear sheep like that. So I had to give all these people a lesson on how to shear a sheep. Even, the sheep was obviously a prop, but you still got to do it right?
100%.
You can't be in front of millions of people not doing it properly. So I gave a lesson in sheep shearing.
Were the other producers standing back going, "What the fuck's going on
How
here?
the
Who's
hell
this
did
person?"
she know? Yeah.
I can just
Who is
picture
this
you got
person?
your set of cans on or something and a clipboard in one hand and trying to do a sheep shearing education
Yeah.
session at the same time.
Yeah. You got to take the belly off, and then you go into the long blow, and then you come down. All the terminology.
There you go. There's something you'd never hear on an event podcast,
I
a
know.
sheep shearing lesson.
That's amazing.
Fantastic. What's the show call like on something of that scale in terms of how it works? Very different to, I assume, the theatre side of things, but even probably more so for our one-dimensional events in terms of such a massive production. Who's in control? How is it called? And is there different levels of that flow through to the communication down to you at a stage management level, or can you give us a bit of an idea around that?
We had a stage manager in each of the entrances onto the field of play, and then there was the show callers up in the control room. You can imagine how stressful the show callers were when the Kathy Freeman lit when the gas and the torch didn't come on. We were all on the field of play going, holy hell, this doesn't look right. That should have lit by now. It's very much you're relying on everyone else to do their bit. I remember at one point in one of the rehearsals in the area where I had all the big machinery coming in, and we got in a bit of a cluster where you had some of the machines in the wrong spot and trying to do U-turns, and you can easily hold everything up. And the show caller, I remember them saying, Heather, what is going on down there? And I said, look, you just got to give me some time. I'll sort it out. I just need some time. Every one little person and every bit is relying on everyone else.
What I will ask, Heather, is was it reinforced amongst all the producers and the stage managers and the directors and so forth? Was it reinforced the importance? I mean, it's obviously an important moment in Australian history and sporting history, but was it reinforced just the global scale that this was? And also, was there any pressures that you had at certain moments that if they didn't work or if it wasn't successful, it could have had implications for the whole experience and event?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people just got on and got the job done, but there was certainly an underlying, we've got a lot to achieve here and a lot to get done, but everyone just got on and did it, I think. But there was a lot at stake, and I think that probably in the 23 years since we've had the Olympics, it's I've probably forgotten all the bad things and just remember the good stuff. But it was there was a lot to achieve in the amount of time we achieved it, and certainly the pressure was felt at times. But everyone, I think, handled it quite well, as best anyone could, really.
Fantastic. And so you've gone on from Sydney Olympics, and then you go through New Year's Eve celebrations, and you land a job with sort of Sydney Opera House in the studio production coordinator role. Can you tell us a bit about how that role came about and how you moved again from, I guess, major events and now starting to transition into venues?
Yeah, I worked on a Sydney festival, and it was working as a Sydney festival coordinator within the Opera House. And so I got to know a few people, and then the festival finished and I wasn't really working. I just went from job to job. Opera House rang me up and said, we've got a 4-month stint looking after the studio. Will you come back and work in the studio for 4 months? And 4 months ended up being a very long association with the Opera House. So I stayed there for a year, and then I went off and had my son. And so I didn't work there for a few years, and then ended up going back to full-time work after having him as a production manager there. So I went back a few years later.
Did you like the process of the Opera House, or what the Opera House was stood for and what it was about, and the productions? What was the attraction, I guess, in going back there? And also, ended up being such a long tenure in your career.
Yeah. The great thing about the Opera House is the variety of shows that you're involved with. You're doing community shows, school shows, international touring shows, all the big acts. You're doing outdoor shows, you're doing indoor shows. It's such a variety. So it's what makes it such a wonderful place to work.
And so you had a little break there. As you say, you had your son and you freelanced a bit. But when you went back to the Opera House, was that them coming to you and wanting you to come back, or did you seek a job back with them? How did that pan out?
No, I was keen to go back to work, and my husband was keen to take some time off and be the primary carer. So, and the job as the production management job came up, and it all worked out really well. So, yeah, it was time for me to go back to full time work.
And what does,
And
I guess, a production management role at the Opera House look like in terms of, for our listeners, in sort of a bit of an insight into what do you do day to day? What's the job description look like, and how do you go about it?
yeah, working at the Opera House, we've always said you can be a production manager in the outside world, but when you go and work at the Opera House, it's a whole different job description being a production manager at the Opera House, because you're working in such a big institution, and you've got to understand all the processes. It's very process driven because there's just so many events. You just have to be really clear on what the process is and follow the process and not get out of it. Otherwise, something will get missed. And it's you're the contact person for the hirer, so the people coming in to put their show on, and you're getting all the information from them and then disseminating it through the rest of the as a production manager, you're liaising with the lighting department, the sound department, and the technical departments, and designing the hirer's show for them to fit into one of the theatres inside the Opera House.
And I guess it can never be lost on you, surely, that you're walking into what's arguably Australia's most famous landmark and tourist attraction. Did you get a buzz out of that, walking in and out of there every day?
Oh, yeah, you do. You never get sick of that.
Yeah.
Walking along the forecourt and seeing the beautiful sails and the harbour bridge and the most beautiful harbour in the world. And I don't know anybody that gets sick of that, everyone who's working there. And it's great to be working. All the hirers who come in, they are so thrilled to be there and to be putting their show on at the Sydney Opera House. And some are really nervous about it. Some are really stressed. Some take it in their stride. But it's a pinnacle for a lot of hirers to come and put their show on. So it's great to be a part of that in people's journey, in their event journey, and you're helping them deliver some of their dreams. It's really
And just on that, Heather, is there much of a vetting system or process that considering, I guess, the prestige of the Sydney Opera House, and you have to bear in mind, your own reputation. Is there a vetting process as far as what types of events come in and perhaps saying no to something that doesn't fit the brand?
Look, there is to a certain degree, because supply is greater. Demand, is much greater than venue supply. So you could fill the venues up many times over throughout the year. And there's not a huge amount of availability by the time there's resident companies at the Opera House, so they all get their footprints in the venues, and then there's the regular commercial hirers. So there is a certain amount of vetting, but they're also really focused on making sure there's diverse programming and something for everybody. And so the venue hire team do a lot of work on making sure that there's a bit for everybody and everyone's needs are met. So, but certainly there's more people want to come to the Opera House than what there are dates available.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And I mean, I've always said when you go in and hire a venue, you're stepping into someone else's lounge room. It's something, it's your baby. It's what you manage day in, day out. And the Opera House is probably the epitome of all lounge rooms in the country, if not one of the best in the world. But how do you guys go about supporting those promoters, those event companies, and all those hirers and the diverse range that you have to be able to deliver the events and the visions that they have?
Yeah, look, we have to be very, and certainly as my role as General Manager of Event Operations, it was very much about having very clear guidelines so that when a hirer is coming, and they might be a new hirer, right from day one, being very clear on what we need as a venue to be able to deliver their event. And communication is really important. And it's a union house, so we need information. The timelines are really important. So we make sure that everyone is aware of that right when they sign up to come and do their show. And sometimes you sort of have to help the hirers make decisions because they don't necessarily know the venues. They don't know necessarily how long it takes to do something in our venue. So you've really got to hold people's hands, particularly the new hirers. You've got to hold their hand and guide them through the complexities of putting on a show and your show that's a part of such a very big machine. So communication, it all comes down to that, really.
Fantastic. Have you seen any crazy stories, or is there any sort of memorable events that have rolled through there that go down in folklore?
Look, there's some great shows. I mean, we did Prince was in the concert hall. Ed Sheeran, before he was Ed Sheeran, did a little unplugged, which was great just to be sitting in the audience. Certainly got to see some amazing artists, but the forecourt was my passion. I loved the outdoor events that we did there. And
what's the biggest? The Oprah one?
Oh yeah,
that looks huge. Or
Oprah was huge. Of course, everyone remembers what happened to Hugh Jackman as he hit the lighting bar from his Flying Fox. The forecourt.
That would have been a bit of a hairy moment for yourself.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, we'd done a lot of work on that Flying Fox, as you can imagine, on how that was going to work and dealing with Hugh's stunt team and everyone involved. And it was just unfortunate that happened, what happened. But, the forecourt is certainly where there's been some really big acts. Certainly some of my most memorable moments. And, everyone laughs at me. I've always got a toilet story. It's always the toilets and queues where things
Bring
go
it
wrong.
On. We like a good toilet story.
Give it to us. Give us one.
Well, we had an event out on the Northern Boardwalk once, and it was a long event. It went for about 4 hours, and the toilet providers, it was back in the day when we had a tank, and you can see where this is going. We didn't plummet, we had tanks. And someone said, I don't know, the calculations were a bit wrong, but, when you tap a tank to see how full it is, and you're tapping, this tank is really full.
Uh-oh.
So, oh my God, we're gonna run out of toilets. And we rang the toilet provider, and of course their depot and their drivers were right, way out of Sydney. So they said, well, we can get a driver, get them to the depot, get a tank to pump out get a truck to pump out the tank. And in the meantime, a few of us in at the we're trying to work out how we can get the audience into toilets in another venue. And it was very stressful. Can you imagine like a crowd of a couple of thousand people who are out having a good night, partying, drinking, that there's no toilet, like no toilet, no event,
So the trees copped it, right? Is that what you're saying?
There's no trees.
There are no trees.
Okay, well, the walls, sorry.
Concrete or into Sydney Harbour.
The trucker made it in the nick of time. But then there was the other time when on the forecourt where someone put something down the portaloos that they shouldn't have put down the portaloos, and all the portaloos stopped. And I just happened to be wandering around, and I heard the call on the radio that, there's something wrong with the toilets, and all the toilets were banking up. And the toilet provider was great, fixed the problem. But what it meant was that you had to actually go into every toilet and flush the toilet to get them all back working again. And everyone was busy working, and there I was, and Matt, one of our contractors, we had to go into every toilet and flush it. And you just think, oh my God, here we are in the glamour.
Yeah, I was going to say, what a spend your day.
That's the glamorous world that we live in events, right?
The glamorous world. One New Year's Eve, we had queues of people at the toilets. And we're like, what is going on here? Like, this is the same formula we use every year, but why this year is there these huge queues to the toilets? And you just can't have that, right?
No.
People can't queue for a long time for a toilet generally. And so we had to find another way to open up some of the internal toilets to get rid of the queue. And of course, on New Year's Eve, all the roads are closed. And then someone said, "Oh, I think they're running out of toilet paper," and it's like, "Oh my god, how can this happen?" Anyway,
Unbelievable.
they managed to get some more in,
Yeah,
but
there
Off
you
to
go.
Coles. Off to Coles.
off the
Get some
coals.
lube.
But
Yeah.
it's like without toilets, you have no event. I don't care what anyone says. Like toilets make or break an event. It's
100%. To
the
any of
most important thing, and
yeah.
it's where my most horror stories come from.
Yeah, so any budding event managers out there or anyone listening, you can have the greatest event on the planet, but if your toilets don't work and you don't have enough of them, more importantly, then it's
That's
a big
right,
fail.
Boris.
Especially when you're fighting over budget and you're like, do we need these
you
toilets?
need the toilets.
Absolutely do need those loos.
No, and that's what it became at the Opera House. It was like, have we got a Heather amount of toilets? So there's the amount of toilets you might think, and then you add some.
Yeah.
It's got to be, because I got to a point with the team at work. It's like, I'm not having an issue with, we don't have enough toilets. So, you get what you think and then you add some.
Well, some might call you the Kenny of the Sydney Opera House, but at least you got the toilet sorted. So that's fantastic. I guess a great way to segue into, and you're probably in this role when you already did it, but the event operations and planning became, your major role at the Opera House. What's the difference between the production manager role to then transitioning into the operations and planning, and how did your career shift at that point?
Yeah, so the manager of event operations was the manager of the production manager team and the account management team and the stage managers. And so they're the whole delivery workforce and the people who work with all the hirers. So the account managers at the Opera House liaise with all the hirers on their invoice and their quote and all their the marketing that they need, the ticketing, security, the food and beverage riders, everything that doesn't have a plug on it, as we say. And the production managers are doing all the technical stuff. So they're a team, the account manager and production manager, and every hirer that comes to the Opera House has an account manager and a production manager to deliver their event. And the general manager of event ops works over the top of those teams. So very much trying to, foresee issues, the longer term planning, putting fires out that might need to be put out, doing all the corporate, or the statutory compliance. There's a lot of rules at the Opera House.
I can imagine.
Particularly the outdoor stuff. Being a World Heritage building, there's a lot of things you can't do outside. You're not allowed greenery outside of the Opera House.
There you go. I was just about to ask, what are some of the rules? What can and can't you do there to give
there's no
people an
greenery.
insight?
It's a man-made environment. You can't have white infrastructure.
No white.
No white.
Infrastructure.
What's going on there?
Well, the sails aren't completely white. So if you put white marquees out there, then it will make the sails look dirty. And Jorn Utzon wrote a letter to the Opera House many years ago when he was still alive, talking about white infrastructure outside, and that, and he likened it to if you had a white tooth in the front of your mouth, it would make all your other teeth look dirty.
Yellow.
So
there you
yellow
go.
or grey. Yeah.
There's a little fun fact. I know. Straight to the trivia table.
Are you letting out a secret here? That's fascinating.
Well, if you do an outdoor event at the Opera House, you have to learn. And you're not allowed to put things in certain locations either. You have to maintain the view. So when you walk down Circular Quay and you walk around the Toaster building there, you want to be able to see the sails in all their glory.
Instagram would shut down, right, if some of the angles were
yeah, that's right.
We're hidden. So without being too specific, because you talked about troubleshooting and just being there for, put the fires out, so to speak. Without being too specific, were there ever any moments of potential danger at the Opera House being such a prominent global location?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of changes over the years. We touched briefly, how different things were back in the Olympics, but when the attacks happened in Paris, was that 2005? That was when, there was a lot of changes need to happen at the Opera House. That's when we started bag searching, everybody going in. And when you make big changes like that, there's a lot of knock-on effect. There's a lot of things to do and a lot of things to take into account. Where's the bag searching going to be? How do people know? Do they need to allow more time? Where are you going to check the ticket? What if there's something in a bag that needs to be confiscated? Making sure everyone cloaks their bags, communication with patrons. That was one of the really big shifts that we had to go through. But that wasn't necessarily danger at the Opera House. That was a global situation that the world was responding to.
That was just a shift in risk management, really.
Yeah,
that's
right.
how I saw that.
Yeah.
What about any other innovations over your time there? Did you have any sort of impact on innovational processes or systems or the way that you guys did things and maybe what we'd experience now that's very different than when you started years ago?
Yeah, I mean, in my time, I made some big changes to the way the forecourt was managed. Like we did a lot of work on with the sound design with the PAs and how we noise monitored noise, so that the residents in the toaster building weren't too disrupted. And there at one point, the forecourt was a challenging venue with the way that we had to manage noise. It was very hard for an international promoter to understand how we measured noise, because we measured it over at the toaster building, not at the front of house desk. So we did a lot of work on the forecourt and made some really big changes there, and it's a really great venue now. Like I stood there and watched Fat Freddy's drop at the end of last year, and there was 6,000 people jumping on the steps, and I thought, wow, this is actually loud enough, which is great for an outdoor venue to feel that. So yeah, that was a really big change, and a really great change to make the forecourt a really great. There's nothing better than sitting on the steps on a beautiful night, watching some music that you like, and with and then you might have a ship that's leaving dock, that's leaving the overseas passenger terminal and the bridge. It's a perfect harbour for outdoor concerts. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, you can barely take a wrong photo there. During 2020 lockdown, you became a board member for the Venue Management Association.
Yeah.
Can you explain some of your tasks associated with this role and what drew you into that association and in ways giving back to the industry?
Yeah, look, it's been great being on the board. It's a great association and what I love about it, I've been to the Congress for many years, is what's the VMA Congress, which is what got me involved. And it's just such a great networking opportunity. You get to know people, talk to people about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And being on the board, I was chair of the Congress committee for the Sydney Congress in 22, which was, I never knew I had it in me. I always used to go to conferences and things and think, wow, how do people come up with ideas on what to do? And then when I did a mini congress in 21 when we just did local congresses instead of a national congress in Sydney out at Kudos Bank Arena in 21. It was just a half day, and I just asked my colleagues, I said, if you wanted to go to a congress, what would you want to hear about? And so that's how I came up with a lot of my topics. And then when I was chair of Congress committee for in Sydney in 22, I just pulled out, a lot of people I knew and topics I was interested in. And because I thought, well, if I'm interested in them and if my friends and my colleagues are interested in them, then probably other people are too. And that rang true. It was good. So yeah, it's been a great association to be associated with the VMA, and they do some great things.
Were you happy with the 2023 Congress?
Oh.
I heard that went well.
Yeah, I heard it went quite well. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes, and for the listeners, there's a certain member who's sitting next to me that might have had something to do with that as well. So,
wasn't it
very,
great?
very well done.
I mean, the centerpiece, what an amazing venue you guys have got down there.
What do you think about other venues when you see them now? Do you compare them back to sort of, your experience, for Opera House and other venues, or are you learning different things, or do you come in and analyse them from top to bottom? I know I do that when I go to the theatre. I analyse it from top to bottom in 5 minutes. But
it's always great going somewhere new, isn't it? And you, seeing it for the first time and seeing how things are. And you can always get something out of it, whether it's something that is not going well and you can learn from that. I think, or something that's going really well that you can learn from. So going to different venues is a great thing to do, even. And, if I get the opportunity to go and see a show, I don't really mind if I like the act or not. I just like the experience, of going to see something.
For sure.
Do you still get to the theatre much? Is that sort of a passion, or do you have any hobbies that align with your work, or is there any other things that you do in your life to keep yourself occupied when you go home?
Well, I go to the theatre quite a bit just because I'm, involved, and which is great. And then when I'm at home, my dog's getting very old, so the dog walks aren't quite what they used to be. But that's what I love. I love walking. I live near on the Melanie Spit Walk, walking in the bush.
You say you still go to the theatre quite regularly. Do you get that itch ever to get back into stage managing?
No, I don't. I don't think I'd have the patience anymore. I think when I was younger, I could put up with people's shenanigans a bit more than probably what I could now.
It's funny what happens when you get a bit older, isn't it? So, you never know. You might end up down at one of the Congress or something, just putting the set of cans on and having a little go over one of the sessions in the future. Never say never.
Yeah. No. Look, and when I was stage managing, I didn't have a kid and a family, because I think it really is very much a way of life, like you meet great friends, you go out, you have drinks after work, and it certainly is a lifestyle working in the theatre, that's for sure. I couldn't keep
100%.
up with it nowadays.
No, we've all been there. We still have a go when we can. So, but that, I guess, is part of the lifestyle. Is that you touch on lifestyle. We're not a 9-to-5 job. It's certainly something that encompasses all our lives, but that's what we love about it, and that's what keeps us passionate about it. So, earlier in the year, after 17 years, you moved on from Sydney Opera House to take on a role with Create New South Wales. Can you tell us a bit about what drove that change and why you wanted to go down a different path, and what your current role is there now?
Look, I was ready for a change. It pained me to leave the Opera House in a way. Like I loved my team there. I loved the people there, but I just needed to do something different. And there wasn't really much more really that I could achieve. I felt, that I'd sort of come to the end of, my time there. And this job at Precinct Manager at Walsh Bay Arts Precinct came up, and I thought, that looks quite good. It's not as operational as the Opera House job, and it's an amazing precinct down here. It's got 9 resident companies who call the place home, and I'm broadening my skills in terms of the things I've got to do. I've got a very small team here. Small but they pack a punch. We're trying to do our brand and our marketing. We've got some spaces here. We want to open up some new restaurants. Trying to get Walsh Bay Arts Precinct on the map a bit more. It's a new place. It was a redevelopment that the arts companies have only moved in for the last couple of years. So the arts companies are in and settled now. I mean, some companies like the Sydney Theatre Company, Sydney Dance Company, they've been down here for a long time. But Pier 2-3 is new, where I said before, when I started the interview, the home of Bell Shakespeare and ACO and ATYP. They've all got new venues, so running new venues down here, getting people used to the new venues and coming and visiting the place. So there's lots to do in the next phase of putting Walsh Bay Arts Precinct on the map as a place.
And whereabouts is it exactly, Heather?
Well, now when I get off the ferry at Circular Quay, instead of turning left to go to the Opera House, I turn right. It's just on the west side of the Harbour Bridge.
Do you
So
ever get confused? Do you go the wrong way occasionally?
No, I haven't yet, but you know.
Out of habit.
Yeah, I'm a Westie now. I'm on the west side of the Harbour Bridge. So
Fantastic. Well, we're at the stage where I like to hand over to Buzz here, and he's got what he's called his rapid fire questions, all prepped and ready to go for another week. So, look, let's not waste any time with it. Buzz, over to you, mate.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to go off the script here because you mentioned Prince before, and that got my attention because I love Prince. He's at the top for me, number one. What's your fondest memory of that Prince show?
I think when he walked on stage and there was just this feeling that you were in the room with someone special.
You certainly were. Now, do you know how many visitors Sydney Opera House gets per year?
I think it's about 13 million.
Wow.
Is that correct? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Oh, that's right. I thought it was,
No, I didn't do any Google searches. I just thought I'd leave it to Heather.
That's a lot of people.
That's impressive if it's true.
For many years, or maybe it's about 10. Might be 10. For many years, they said
Only.
7 million. And then they said that for many years. And then they thought, hang on, we should, have a look at this. Surely it's not still 7. It might be about 10. Let me say 10.
Heather, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. Let's stick with 13. Okay. So how many prime ministers have you met?
I don't think I've met prime ministers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that would have been part of the deal with all the PMs coming in and out of that place.
Well,
it stays behind the scenes.
Royalty.
Oh, wow.
Oh, there we go.
Mary
do
and
tell. Yep. Come
Fred,
on, hit us with that.
And Mary and Fred and William and Kate came, and Harry and Meghan, and bit of royalty, but not so much prime ministers.
Outside of the Opera House, what's your favourite venue in Sydney?
It would have to be the event space at Walsh Bay Precinct.
Good answer.
Very good.
Very diplomatic. I like it.
Got to give yourself a plug. That's great. That's great work.
Yeah.
What advice would you go back and give to your 20-year-old self?
I think the most important thing you can do in life is love going to work every day. Have fun. Don't take it too serious.
Have fun. All about that. Well, my final one is I'm going to Foo Fighters in Sydney in a few weeks. Now, what's the best place for me to go and get a beer before the show?
I don't even know what venue they're on at. Where are they?
The one that's way out because Sydney's all over the place.
Homebush.
Yeah.
No good place out there to get a beer. Sorry, I shouldn't say that.
I am staying in Surrey Hills though.
Oh, well, there's plenty of good places in Surrey Hills. Your local pub.
Okay, to stick with that, which there is where I'm staying. So just stick with the local
Great.
on the corner.
Stick with the local, yeah.
That's a solid answer. I like it.
The closest pub to your bed is the safest bet.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
There you go. Heather, to finish each episode of An Eventful Life, we've started a bit of a tradition whereby we have asked the previous guest to leave the next guest a question without knowing who they are. So today's question to you, what is the biggest mistake you have made and what did you learn from it?
Oh, the biggest mistake. I'm not sure I can necessarily think of a big mistake. I mean, there's a lot of little things that go wrong as you go along, but I think the biggest learning I've got out of all the different things in life is you have to own your mistakes and come clean and honest. That's one of the biggest lessons I think I've learned in life, particularly when you're managing people and working with people. You just want people to be honest with you, and everyone fucks up.
Exactly.
At some point, people make mistakes. People think that they can fix something, and so they cover it up, and it just becomes worse. And so, my biggest learning would have to be around just be honest and true. And if you do something wrong, own it.
I like it. I think it's a very valuable lesson that a lot of us could take on board sometimes. So particularly in this industry where we're so worried about making a mistake, and yes, we try not to make them, but, things happen, and
things
that's life.
happen, and you've just got to not only with events but with anything, right? And you've just got to, and sometimes things that go wrong turn into something positive.
For sure.
Totally. Well, I think that's a great way to wrap up this episode of An Eventful Life. Heather, thank you very much for your time and for your insights. And what an amazing career you've had. And
just fascinating.
Incredibly fascinating.
Thank you.
I still go back to the Olympics. It's amazing.
Yeah,
the
really
Olympics
nice
is certainly something different there that, it's great to hear the inside story. You don't often get that for people that have worked on the inside and as well as going on to the Sydney Opera House, and what an iconic a venue that is. And so well done on everything you've achieved so far. And we look forward to seeing what you've got next and what's around the corner with VMA and everything else in your pipeline. So we wish you all the very best and look forward to catching up soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks very much. Nice to chat.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of An Eventful Life. Don't forget to subscribe on your favourite podcast platform so you don't miss an episode. It makes a huge difference to us. And don't forget you can also find us on our new YouTube channel.
This show is for you, our listeners. Our aim is to bring you the most in-depth conversations and life experiences from the event industry. So if you have any feedback, suggestions on guests you would like us to interview on the show, please reach out to us through our social media channels. I'm Brad.
And I'm Shane.
See you next time on An Eventful Life.